Welcome to the Food Startups Podcast, connecting the opaque world of food startups.
This is Daniel Imri Sitanayake of Tiny Farms, and you are listening to the Food Startups Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 72 of the Food Startups Podcast. In today's episode, we have another industry disruptor, venture funded and growing like crazy. And, last week it was Blue Cart. This week it is Chicory. So what is Chicory? I'm going to start off with an anecdote that a lot of you guys have gone through. You find a great recipe online, then you walk or drive to the grocery store. You're checking on the list. You got the scallions, you got the eggs, you got all the basic ingredients, but there's 2 or 3 ingredients that just aren't there or you can't find. And you're like, well, that's the end of that recipe. I'm just not going to make it. Or maybe you try to substitute it, but then you find that you can't even find the substitute ingredients. It takes a lot of mental energy to figure that out if you're not a chef. We've all gone through an experience pretty similar to that, I'd say. And so Chicory is trying to solve that. What they do, basically, it's kind of like a plug-in, a button, a smart button that you can add on blogs and online magazines where you see a recipe and there's a link, click to buy, and it will automatically load up the ingredients in a shopping cart at like Peapod or Amazon Fresh, so you can buy them online and have them delivered to you. So it solves a huge problem because not only that, just making the trip to the grocery store itself is inconvenient. Not depending where you live, you may not even want to go to the grocery store. You may not like going to the grocery store. So this is something that solves that problem, removing a lot of friction. Let's say you have a dinner party in 2 days and just click buy. The ingredients will be magically delivered to you. So it's really, really cool. They, I guess through Time Magazine, who they have a partnership with, they have just been integrated into the new Food and Wine magazine website. So yeah, today I think you're going to learn a lot about how it got started and how they're growing and their models. So I think there's a lot to learn from anybody that's looking for, I don't want to say growth hacking, but how to grow in a disruptive industry, which is, grocery and food retail. All right. Well, please enjoy the episode. Today we have the founder of Chicory. His name is Yuni Samashima. Yuni, how's it going?
Good, great. How are you?
I'm doing really good. And I kind of wanted to recap for the audience here. First off, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name's Yuni. As I said before, I studied molecular biology at Colgate University. I grew up in New York. And I started Chicory when I was a senior at Colgate, actually, and continued to work on it after graduation.
Okay. And when did you graduate from Colgate?
2013.
2013. Okay. So, all right. So you've been out for 2 years, right? So this is a college project and now it's survived 2 years after you've graduated, which is longer than most startups.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. And moving back, so molecular biology, how did you, pretty different, right? So molecular biology and now into a smart, we'll call it a smart recipe app. How did you make that transition?
Yeah. So, when I first started in school, I thought maybe I'd want to pursue, like an MD, PhD or something. But my sophomore year, I ended up working in a lab and I hated it, to be honest. You're underground, there are no windows. And in upstate New York, you can imagine, you go into the lab when it's dark and when you leave, it's also dark. So I ended up, wanting to go into the startup world a little bit. I interned at a venture capital firm my junior year, the summer after my junior year. And, I thought maybe being a VC would be really cool. And it definitely is cool. But I saw many entrepreneurs come in during that time, during that summer. And I remember thinking, wow, these guys have so much passion for what they do. They have, there's a fire in their eyes. And I wanted it. And I wanted sort of to build something and make something of my own, which is why we started Chicory my senior year of school.
Wow. Okay. So I got 2 comments there. So first off, like upstate New York, I'm from Maryland and it's not nearly as cold as upstate New York. We do have a pretty cold winter. And I have a good buddy. He moved to Boston and he's just telling me about the winters, man. He's just like, man, it's soul crushing. And as you know, sunlight, vitamin D, and what's it called? SAD, seasonal affectivity disorder. You painted a really good picture there. You kind of avoided sunlight and spent your time in a lab.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. And I was like, I need to talk with more people. So
But that's cool because so it's cool in the sense that you were able to do that early. It's not like some people say like, I always wanted to be a lawyer, right? And then they don't even, until they start law school and they've, invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, they figure out, wow, well, the internship too, I know at law school can be actually kind of fun because they're trying to recruit you. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they've gotten their law degree and passed the bar and they're at a soul crushing law firm. We actually had a guest on the show that was in the law space in New York, and then he moved out to San Francisco to start Thistle. Okay, this is cool. So this junior internship for you, this was a life-changing thing, it seems like. I mean, one is like, what made you, at this point, did you decide that molecular biology was out and you were going into business and entrepreneurship?
I wouldn't say molecular biology is out. I love molecular bio. I think it's absolutely fascinating. Otherwise, I wouldn't have continued to major in it. But yeah, at that point, I thought to myself, life is short. I want to try to do something. I want to try to bring something to fruition. And which is one of the reasons why I wanted to start a company that, really stemmed from my own passions as well.
Right. And so before we go into your passion for food, so for someone that doesn't have a good understanding of molecular biology, I guess my question would be, what are some of the things that attract you to molecular biology? And in terms of biology in general, I'm sure there's tons of startups around that as well. So it's not like you couldn't do a startup later, but give us I don't know, one paragraph, like some of the exciting things about molecular biology, why it attracts you and why it's important.
Molecular biology is really interesting just because, you take for granted a lot of times that people in general, like everyone, right, is that you're kind of alive. And how are you alive? Right, is the big question. And molecular biology goes into the study of DNA and how DNA interacts with proteins and how basically all of these molecular components are working to create you. And so for me, when I was studying it, I really, really enjoyed understanding how all of these components came together and how all these different pieces came together to create a human being, I guess.
Wow. Okay. All right. So Yuni, your passion for food. How did you develop a passion for food in college? Where did it come from?
So actually, my co-founder and I started this together, and we both very much enjoy cooking and eating. And it really stems, sort of to go back to my Japanese roots, is every night we would have, all through elementary, middle, high school, we would have family dinners, right? And my mom is an amazing cook, and I tried to emulate her cooking as much as possible and learning from her as much as possible. And so my junior year, actually, when I was working at this venture capital firm, one of the big things I realized is that, I would look at recipes and save them or clip them or email them to myself. But I ended up not cooking very often just because I would get home so late and I'd check my fridge and, I didn't have the ingredients to cook that recipe, which is why, we sort of came up with the concept of Chicory.
And it's interesting because solving a problem, like I think a lot of us, myself and people listening, have gone through that where it's like you get excited about a recipe and they're like, all right, I got like I have like milk and I have, eggs. And then you start to look at the ingredients. You're like, oh, I don't have that spice. You're like, oh, I don't have that. Oh man, I don't know what that ingredient is. Right. So it's like, I think of it this way. It's like if I'm going to have a dinner party on Wednesday and I saw the recipe, I may just clip it because I'm busy and I'm working. But then come Wednesday, I get home, it's 4 p.m. There's a lot of traffic out and wow, I don't have any of the ingredients. So the idea to be able to click a button, essentially load a shopping cart and get delivered is solving a problem.
Yeah.
And exactly. I want to go even a little bit more into that because the ER Accelerator, which I guess is the Entrepreneur Roundtable Accelerator, in the article, which I'll link to on the podcast, which will be, the blog post will be foodstartupspodcast.com/Chicory, CHICORY. Okay, so the accelerator focused on companies that are modernizing legacy industries. So what is the legacy industry that you guys are modernizing?
So we basically work in the retail industry, right? And specifically grocery. And I think grocery right now is sort of when a lot of sort of exciting things are happening. Essentially, the industry as a whole is modernizing, and we're essentially trying to help push that forward as much as we can. And as I'm sure you guys know, e-commerce has been really big in other areas of retail. Whereas in grocery, it's always been tough to find the right model or the right consumers. But right now, I think, is when things are changing and people are adopting online grocery more, and retailers are really investing heavily in online grocery space.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And grocery and retail is kind of antiquated. It needs to be improved and innovated and disrupted, right? We've had some guests on the show that are also in that space. So that's really cool. Now, I wanted to go into another thing that you guys have talked about is the natural language processing. And this is a quote. Today, we analyze over 100 million data points a day across 300 plus partner recipe sites, making us one of the largest real-time food data companies in the world. Now, can you explain that to us, exactly what that means and the types of data you're getting and how you can use that not just for Chicory, but kind of to, just like Facebook has tons of data, what do you plan to do with all that data?
Sure. Yeah. So natural language processing. So one of the big problems with recipes, initially when we started this company, we thought, okay, recipes are, some of the most popular sites on the internet. And online grocery, obviously, Peapod has been around for, 10 plus years. Why doesn't this exist yet? And one of the big things we learned is that recipes are very difficult to analyze. Right now, you can do sort of keywords, right? You can pull the word chicken or you can pull the word berries. But understanding a recipe and the ingredients and being able to normalize those ingredients has been extremely tough. And so, from our perspective, when we actually had to connect the ingredients to products being sold at the grocer, the first thing we had to do was build this sort of normalizing engine. So we're able to take different ingredient lines. So for example, one recipe might call for a half cup of shredded chicken, and another recipe might call for 2 pieces of boneless, skinless chicken breast. And we understand that those two are the same ingredient, right? Another example might be green onions and scallions, and knowing that those two are actually the same product. So, by analyzing sort of what the latest food trends are, or by analyzing the ingredients, we're able to start seeing food trends and understanding, what are people buying, sort of when are people buying it? And, we can use this in ways to sort of optimize our sort of user experience, as well as, help basically any company sort of in the food or retail space by supplying them with interesting data about how people are thinking about food today.
That's really cool. I would think even for writing, whether it's publishing, I know you guys are working with Time, but publishing interesting kind of articles about the data. I guess a lot of startups have scaled because they've published kind of trends based on the data that they've come up with. And you guys can kind of do the same thing. Now, in terms of the data points, you guys have grown quite a bit, as Hillary helped me understand. How many page views do you get of your recipe plugin a day?
Yeah, so we are, it's tough to give you exact numbers, but just to give you a ballpark, earlier this year we were getting, impressions sort of on our button, right? We were probably in the 6 figures in terms of impressions per month, but in October we are well into 8 figures, in the 8-figure range per month.
Wow, so tens of millions of impressions. That must have been that's pretty exciting, huh?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And this means that we're also, getting to see these trends at sort of from a more macro level, which is exciting as well.
That's cool. And so you guys have a venture backing, or how's that work?
Yeah, so we closed our seed round earlier this year. We have a couple of funds, East Coast and West Coast funds, actually, as well as sort of a handful of angels.
Cool. And okay, so you have various investors, and one trend I've seen with startups that have come on the show that choose to take investment, they usually look for not just the money, but someone that can kind of guide them. Do you have any key investors that don't just provide you guys capital, but advice and experience?
Yeah. So one of our first investors actually was actually also a mentor at ER Accelerator, is a guy by the name of Mike Kiriakos, and he's actually one of the founders of Everyday Health. If you've ever heard of that, they're a big sort of media company now, but they just went public last year, and he's been from day one till public. So he's been an amazing advisor to us so far.
Wow. Okay. Cool. And I want to go back in. So I guess that's probably another key point is, you guys signed the deal with Time, like Time Incorporated, which has, Food and Wine and a number of other publications. How did you get that introduction, and how long did it take for you guys to close that type of game-changing business development deal?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we first started this company, as I mentioned, we were still in school. And the summer after our senior year, actually, we stayed in Hamilton, New York, which is where Colgate is. At the time, we were very new. In hindsight, we didn't really know what we were doing, but we talked with all, sort of the big publishers. We sort of put our name out there. And, so I think initial contact was pretty early on, but what really, really helped us and I honestly consider, myself lucky, is we met a lot of people, good people during our time at ER Accelerator. And, we happened to, meet someone who had worked with someone at Time Inc. and we got introduced to the head of digital there. And then from there, it took, still another couple months to really close that deal. But really fortuitous, I think.
Yeah, well, serendipity, right? And the more people you meet and the higher chance you have of getting one of those things to come through. So that's awesome. And I guess, okay, so another component of this are not just bloggers, but the websites. We'll call them bloggers just to make it simpler. But, bloggers that want to get exposure, that have cooking sites, do they, in terms of the business model, do they get a commission if someone buys the recipe?
Yeah, so bloggers have been sort of an integral part of our business. The first publishers that we ever signed up were bloggers. And I think it's a huge industry. You've seen companies like BlogHer, She Knows acquired BlogHer, as well as blog networks who are really getting value out of these bloggers. And, one of our goals is to create products that not only help the consumer, but also help the bloggers to monetize. And so, with that said, we do have a revenue share with the bloggers, and we're constantly trying to figure out new ways to help them monetize their blog as well.
That's awesome. And it makes so much sense because, it's like great targeted advertising is, it's, I guess like in the olden days, right, there'd be like banner ads that weren't really targeted. And now with AdWords and private advertising networks, this is a huge value add. And so it's not just something that can make money for the bloggers, but it makes better content for the people reading the blogs. Exactly. So it's like a win. And this is a theme of Chicory. It's kind of a win-win for everybody involved. This is so that's great. That's a great situation to be in. Cool. Well, you need to finish up. All right. Here's an interesting question. Give me the ideal, like for the next 12 to 18 months, if you could, change the future, but if you could tell me what would exactly happen that you'd say, all right, a year and a half from now, this is exactly what we wanted to happen.
Sure. I think a lot of moving parts there, obviously, right? But from our perspective, we are continuing to grow our network. We want to hit hopefully 9 digits worth of impressions by the end of next year. We want to onboard more grocers so that we're covering not only the entire country, but we're also, overlapping so consumers have more choices as to where they want to shop from. And we want to, continue figuring out new ways that we can work with retailers, publishers, and brands. Oh, wow.
So, I hadn't thought about this even reading this morning. So that's really cool because if you have overlap, this recipe would cost $46 at this online retailer, or it would be $38 at this online retailer. And maybe one could deliver, same day, and the other might take 2 days to make the delivery.
Yeah, this is why sort of this space is so exciting, right? Is because there's so many things happening and so many people investing in this space that honestly, the possibilities are endless. And for us, even on a day-to-day basis, figuring out, let's focus on this one thing where we could also be doing, 10 other things. Finding that focus has been really key for us as well.
Finding the focus, right? Because there's so many opportunities as you guys grow, but kind of just sticking to the core and doing one thing at a time and doing it really well.
Right.
Okay, well, listen, Yuni, so this is a segue for me, I guess, because let's see, today it's interview we're, early to mid-November. Maybe let's check back 12 to 18 months from now and have you back on the show because there's just so much stuff to talk about. And the way startups change, the way look at Uber's, the prime example, but when you're changing a legacy industry, things move really, really fast. So this is exciting. Yuni, thanks for coming onto the show. And if users want to reach out to you or other bloggers, especially food bloggers, where can they find you?
Yeah, find us at chicory.co. That's chicory.co.
Great. All right, Yuni, thanks so much. And thanks again for being on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And look forward to talking in a year.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, find us online at foodstartupspodcast.com.